welcome to the October 23rd meeting of the Falmouth Conservation Commission. At this time, please silence all your electronic devices. If you're going to hold a private conversation, please take it outside. This meeting is being recorded by FCTV. If there's anyone else recording, please identify yourself for the record. If you are here to speak on any matter before the commission, and we do encourage you to do so, please do so from the podium at the appropriate time. State your name for the record and speak into the microphone. And for the record, the appointed alternate for this meeting is...
We need, I think you need two. Two?
Hmm?
You need two.
I need two? All right. Peter's number two.
Do I see Mark?
Mark's not here
No,
tonight.
Mark's not here, so it's Mark and Maury. I just found out about Maury late, so.
All right. Get all that out of the way. All right, first up, vote minutes, October 16, 2019.
Mr. Chairman, I've read the minutes and I found them complete and correct.
We have a motion and a second. Any other discussion? All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Unanimous. Request for continuance for determination of applicability, Jewett Realty Trust, number 3, Margaret Carr, I think that's trustee, 69 Barneck Road, Falmouth, Mass, for permission to conduct invasive species management.
Mr. Chairman, the applicant has requested a continuance until October 30th.
So moved. Second.
We have a motion and a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? It's unanimous. Next request for continuance, Lucy Greer, 77 Barneck Road, Falmouth, Mass, for permission to conduct invasive species management.
Mr. Chairman, the applicant has requested permission to continue until October 30th.
So moved. Second.
November 3rd.
It'll be October 30th.
October 10:30.
Oh, I'm sorry. Okay, we have a motion and a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? It is unanimous. Request for determination of applicability, Ward Aqua Farms LLC, 42 Fiddler's Cove Road, North Falmouth, Mass, for permission to install a short-term experimental aquaculture project.
Mr. Chairman, staff recommends a -2 under the state and bylaw. Resource area boundaries are not confirmed under this RDA.
So moved. Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any discussion from the board? Discussion from the public?
Mr. Chairman.
All right. All those in favor? You can speak if you'd like to. You don't have to.
I mean, I'll answer questions if there are any, or I don't want to get in your way, you know.
Okay, you're good.
Fine.
All right, we have a motion and a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? It is unanimous. You're good.
Thank you very much.
One of the best presentations I've heard this year.
Short and sweet. Next up, Leonard F. Ramia, 11 Avenue A, East Falmouth, Mass, for permission to install a pool and associated fence within flood zone AE.
Mr. Chairman, staff recommends a -2 under the state and bylaw. Resource area boundaries are not confirmed under this RDA.
So moved.
Second. We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Hearing none, I'll call for the vote. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? It is unanimous. Next up, Kathy Shaw, 457 Sippowiset Road, Falmouth, Mass, for permission to vista prune according to FWR 10.18 10B.
Mr. Chairman, staff recommends a -2 under the state and bylaw. Resource area boundaries are not confirmed by this RDA.
So moved. Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion from the board? Hearing none, I'll call for the vote. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? It is unanimous. Next up, Lucy Greer, that's been continued. Jewett Realty Trust, that's been continued. Falmouth Holdings Corporation, 278 Scranton Ave, Falmouth, Mass, for permission to perform minor repairs to an existing licensed travel lift pier.
Mr. Chairman, the applicant has requested to withdraw this request.
We need to vote on that?
Nope.
File a notice.
Yeah.
Continued request for determination of applicability. Richard and Patricia Torre, 57 Cape Cod Road, West Falmouth, Mass. For after-the-fact permission to install a water service to the dwelling and rebuild a section of stone wall.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, they're still working with abutters, so they've requested one additional continuance until November 20th.
So moved.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second for continuance. Any
Till-
discussion?
What, 11:20?
11:20.
Could I just ask a question? Why does it say West Falmouth? Not West Falmouth.
Yeah, it's Falmouth.
We'll take that off.
Typo.
Simple as it is Falmouth.
Yes, I got that, Courtney.
Maury probably had her hands in it. We have a motion and a
Along with
second.
you.
All those in favor of continuance, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? It is unanimous. Request for a hearing under notice of intent. All hearings of the Falmouth Conservation Commission are held simultaneously under the authorities of the Massachusetts Wetlands Protection Act and the Falmouth Wetlands Bylaw. Although a single decision of the commission is issued, it represents a separate decision under each authority. First up, Susan C. Skelly, trustee, 27 Racing Beach Avenue, Falmouth, Mass. For permission to construct a single-family, 6-bedroom dwelling with garage, swimming pool, patio, cabana, retaining walls, septic system, and perform associated landscaping with an invasive species management and restoration plan.
Can we open the second one as
I
well?
was gonna ask you.
Yeah.
Okay. Simultaneously, we will take Susan C. Skelly, trustee, lot 14B, 0 Racing Beach Avenue, Falmouth, Mass. For permission to perform grading and landscaping associated with the construction of a new dwelling at lot 14A, 27 Racing Beach Avenue, and conduct an invasive species management and restoration plan. Mr. Bunker.
Thank you. For the record, my name is Tom Bunker with BSS Design. We did the survey, prepared some of the plans for this project. With me tonight is Teresa Sprague of Blue Flax Design, who also prepared some of the plans.
Thank you, Peter.
We start with the existing conditions, and they're not really updated to what's presently existing on the ground now. But when we started, I think I do have it noted that existing condition is a spring 2019. There was, this is for number 27, there's a driveway going up the hill, circular driveway up here on the top of the hill by the house, and another driveway, arm of the driveway coming to a garage at a lower elevation down here. I will eventually go to I can show you this plan. I can show you the resource areas a little better on this. So I'll start across Racing Beach Avenue on the south of the road. We have a vegetated wetland that runs up here, which is basically it's a series of connected wetlands running from uphill down along this side of Racing Beach Ave, and then down to some salt marsh further down. This wide blue line is the FEMA velocity zone. Elevation 18, I believe. This narrower blue line is the 25-foot Falmouth Wetland Regulation Velocity Zone. It's a little harder to see. You have the flood zone here, and there's a orangey color. It's on your plans. There's Coastal Bank in this location, and over in this location, being in a velocity zone, this is the 50-foot A zone to the Coastal Bank here and here. There is our zone, buffer zones to the vegetated wetland that are also shown on your plan, but the most important, the most furthest landward Zone A buffer is this line, and then another 50 feet out is the furthest Zone B, that's 100 feet from the coastal banks on the property. From the velocity zone, it goes directly into flood zone X in this location up here. So what I've done, shaded in the orange, the existing driveway. And so you can see at the bottom of the hill, it's the same driveway, so there's no, other than putting in drainage. We have a large leaching structure here, putting in drainage and repaving. Ultimately, there'll be no disturbance down here in the Zone A. There will be some other disturbance, and that is taking out pavement. This pavement right here will be removed from Zone A, and this pavement of the existing driveway, I've only shaded it as far as the Zone B. Basically, this entire driveway, part of the driveway that went up to the garage in the back, will be removed and revegetated. And then going up toward the house where there's a circular driveway, there'll be just the turnaround, and which is a reduction in coverage within the Zone B. So there is overall a reduction in coverage of, in Zone A, 437 square foot decrease. In Zone B, there's a 56 square foot increase, which is this walkway coming down the hill. There's some walkway and steps. And then this corner of the patio right here, and two small corners of the house are within Zone B. So you can see the rest of the house here, and a swimming pool, and this patio, and there's a cabana in this location, the septic system in this location. It's more than 100 feet from any coastal bank, well over 100 feet from any wetland. And so, for this site, there is a reduction. There is no mitigation required as such in your redevelopment regulations. No 3-to-1 or 2-to-1 mitigation. There is an area of native plants being planted here, and I think maybe Teresa can talk about generally on this lot. And one thing is not not highlighted on this plan, but this line right here is the lot line, and so this is the what I'm talking about. This lot here first, number 27. So I don't know. Would you want to talk about 27 first, or go through both of them first?
Why don't you just go through?
I can put up it's very similar to this, as far as the resource areas, again, the velocity zone down here, and the Falmouth velocity zone in this location, 25 feet. The A zone of the coastal banks, which are down here. Actually, a dune off-site here. And then the Zone B for all the coastal banks is up this way. There is an A zone right through here for this wetland which is across the road. And so what's going to happen here is, because this patio, the pool patio on the other lot, it is two different trusts, but they're developing this as though it were one parcel. We basically separated it, so we could, we hope, get approval for this part, and in case the work down here might have some questions on it, we could get one of the hearings closed. Is why we're doing it this way. Basically, this lot here, we're running the pool fence, the swimming pool fence required by code, onto this lot and then back up again basically from it starts up around the house. The fence starts up here, it'll be a gate, and they run down onto this lot and back up. And then there'll be a small bit of retaining wall in this location. This will be a grass area in this location. And the area down through here will be maintained in more or less, it will be with natural vegetation. Teresa can explain that about some of the trees which have been topped will be cut out and grasses planted. And then also a split rail fence in this location coming down between the two A buffer lines, so all of the work will be in the Zone B. So I think probably Teresa has more now to say about both of these sites.
Good evening, Teresa Sprague with Blue Flax Design. Nope, wrong button, sorry. Wait, Tom, where's my, sorry. Okay, so I'm gonna start with 27 Racing Beach, just to go over quickly what Tom was describing. For our planting plan and restoration plan, as Tom pointed out, we have a net reduction in impervious surface within zones A and B here on lot 27. What we are proposing is, however, in order to stabilize the slope, there are existing steep grades, or there were and there will continue to be. We're proposing an additional 10,690 square feet to be restored in this area. So there is some invasive vegetation located in the northern portion of the property, as well as down here abutting lot 14B. We're proposing to, where the driveway was removed, we're proposing to revegetate that whole area. We'll have 143 native shrubs and 3 additional trees that we're adding onto the lot here. So even though there is a net reduction, the goal is to try and keep the A-zone vegetated, so the A-zone will remain entirely vegetated, as well as making sure that we're keeping the area stable. We are proposing just traditional or typical landscaping once this regrading is done here up by the house. But all of these areas located to the north and then just to the south of the dwelling will all be restored with native vegetation. The planting list is here, so that includes some serviceberry trees, as well as chokeberry, very little sweet fern, inkberry, holly, winterberry, fragrant sumac, some low bush blueberry, and viburnum, all of which are currently located on lots 14B. So we've identified this vegetation on lot 14B. So I'll talk a little bit more about lot 14B because we're proposing a lot more on this particular lot. So I think there's probably more of interest in the Conservation Commission's jurisdiction in this area. So as Tom pointed out, we have the B zone runs up through through 27, lot 14A. 14B, you see the edge of the A zone here and here, as well as, and then this area within here is all located within the B zone. Part of what we're proposing, where Tom was discussing the overlap from lot 14A to 14B, is to grade some areas. So here's the property line. Grade a small area just below the pool, patio, and retaining wall. In order to create a little bit of level yard space, we're proposing a 2-foot-high boulder retaining wall. If you've been out to the site, you'll see there are numerous boulders on the site from the demolition of the previously existing house on lot 27. And then just to provide a little bit of lawn area, fescue lawn area in this lot here. If you've all been out to the site, I'd like to just talk a little bit about the existing conditions, mainly on 14B. We provided a land management plan focused mainly on 14B. As you've seen, it's a heavily wooded property. It slopes significantly downhill from east to west and south toward Racing Beach Ave. It is currently undeveloped and has been undeveloped. However, there are significant signs of management on this lot, mainly for views, we believe, from the previous house on Lot 27. So both lots 27 and then the lot to the west are developed. As Tom pointed out, there's isolated fragmented coastal banks identified in the north and south sides of the lot, and in 50-foot and 100-foot buffer boundaries. The lot is well canopied with a mix of trees, mainly black cherry, pitch pine, oak, and some eastern red cedars. Many of the trees have been pollarded, which is a polite term for saying hacked. Some are severely damaged and in decline, while others really simply will benefit from some regenerative pruning throughout the area. The shrub layer is dominated by non-native and invasive species, mainly Japanese barberry, autumn olive, bittersweet, border privet, honeysuckle, vine honeysuckle shrub, honeysuckle. There is, however, we identified some lowbush blueberry in the ground cover layer, arrowwood viburnum throughout, as well as black huckleberry. The northern and southern ends of the lot have dense canopy, both in the A-zone on the northern portion of the lot and the A-zone in the southern portion of the lot. The A-zone in the northern portion of the lot makes up, invasive species make up approximately 5 to 10% of the cover in the southern portion of the lot. In this area, in here, in the B zone, and then in other areas of the A zone, that actually jumps up to 60 to 70%, which is pretty typical of the kinds of disturbance that we're seeing throughout this lot for vista pruning. I'd like to just kind of go through and show you, there are some photos included in our land management plan, but I wanted to share some photos of the lot. So this is looking up the driveway. You can see the welcome sign here for number 27. Let's see if I can open all of these at the same time. And then we can kind of float through them. You can see in this picture, we're looking at the southern side of the lot. You can see this cleared area in the back. That's actually in the area of the portion of Zone B that sort of dips down towards Racing Beach Ave. But you can see here that all of the understory, these photos were taken in May, so the invasive vegetation generally leaves out before most of the native vegetation. So you can see that everything that's green here is invasive vegetation, a mix of bittersweet and honeysuckle throughout. Let's see if I can click forward on this. Nope. Huh, how's that gonna work? Okay. Again, another image of some of the invasive vegetation that's found in the understory. There's really no ground cover layer. There's duff and leaf litter, but there's no other ground cover layer throughout the area. And here you can see this is a portion of the area that we're proposing to revegetate with a mix of native grasses, lowbush blueberry, et cetera. You can see in this area the oaks have been cut, but they're healthy. Generally, the eastern red cedar trees are in fairly good condition. You'll note some of them have been topped, but they're still viable trees. You can see more shrub honeysuckle in the background here, and again, some of the vine kind of creeping in through the area. In May, here is some damaged vegetation, whether it's cut or wind throw, I'm not sure. Again, everything that you're seeing in green is invasive. Here you can start to see some of the pollarded trees. These are the trees that are actually in really good condition, so we're proposing to remain. Perhaps just a little regenerative pruning will be needed on those trees. We can start to see in here, these are trees that have been more significantly damaged. This again is the area of the B zone where there's really no ground cover layer. There's lots of signs of disturbance in this area, invasive vegetation, and we can see these cut trees that were previously pruned, I'm presuming for views. Here's another sign of one of the trees that we're proposing to remove. It's in really poor condition. I don't think even with flush cutting that can actually be brought back to anything of mature fruiting size. This is out looking towards the road. Again, you can see there's just very little ground cover. Trees are, in poor condition. We identified 6 trees that are in severe decline that we're proposing to simply cut and remove and replace with native trees. There are 4 trees that we identified that I think will regenerate beautifully if we flush cut and allow them to regenerate. And then there are some trees in the B zone that are just completely overwhelmed. This is a picture of the property line right between Lot 14B and Lot 27. There's a stockpile of boulders in this area. That is basically what we're looking at is this area in here, right at the edge. So the areas that you saw that are proposed, you can see we have some X's here in the B zone. These are trees that are shown that are the completely planted. They're all flagged in the field. If you were out there, you would have been able to see those. These are the 4 trees that we're proposing to simply flush cut and allow to regenerate. And then in this area and here and right along here, there's some trees that are just severely damaged that we're proposing to remove entirely. To revegetate and restore the lot after the invasive species management is complete, we're proposing to replant the area with 480 shrubs in 12 trees. The area in total that we're proposing management is about 16,000 square feet. In total that's going to be restored. So this entire Lot 14B, with the exception of the small area where the pool fencing is going to come down and we're going to provide some level space, is going to remain in a naturally vegetated state. In the process of developing this, I spoke with Jennifer and Kevin last week. We looked at many iterations of this. We've been working on this project for about a year. The scope of the project has been reduced significantly by about 70% from what was originally being proposed in working with the property owners. For example, originally they were proposing to put a pool and a cabana in this area of Lot 14B. This is one of those where I wish we had an alternatives analysis because I think we've gotten to a really good place in the past year of working with Duffany Builders and Tom and the property owners and the architect on this. The house on Lot 27 was initially supposed to be about double this size. We've reduced it significantly. So we've removed all proposed development from Lot 14B, significantly reduced the size of the house on Lot 27 so that it remains mainly outside of the B zone. The A zone on Lot 27 will remain entirely vegetated with the exception of the area where the driveway currently runs through. So with that, I'm happy to answer any questions about the revegetation or management of both 27 and 14B.
Thank you. Anybody want to start?
Yeah, I'll start. Tom, I don't really have any questions for you. Just so the board knows, the staff did sign off on the building permit to demo the house and put the foundation in, so, what we realized at the time is that little sneaky coastal bank snuck up on us, so we thought it was just the driveway portion and, so, but that was done with the staff's permission. Teresa, are you sure those trees are flagged in the field? Because I was just talking to Kevin about how I want you to go back out and flag them now that I'm like marking them on the plan.
They were flagged in June, so Allison and I were out there flagging those trees. So actually, if you look at the photos, the flagging tape is showing in the photos. Let me see. I looked at some of these. Call me a liar. I included some photos that showed the flagging tape on the trees.
Because we were crawling right in where that house
There was
was.
pink flagging tape
Yeah.
throughout.
I might have to go back out and reflag them, because Kevin and I were in there today,
Okay.
and I didn't see any flag. How many trees are coming out?
So there's 6 trees coming out of the A zone, and then in the B zone, there are 12, I'm calling them I'm gonna call all of them stumps, because they're all trees that I'm showing here that have been stumped and pollarded. So the trees that are coming out are all, in the condition that are shown like this. And there are 12 within the B zone that are stumps that are coming out, and then there's 6 within the A zone that are being removed.
There's 6 on the A zone on
14B.
side, but then you have more on the others,
We
according to
have
your
4 that
plan.
we're proposing to flush cut. We think they'll be fine. We can just
No,
regeneratively.
no, on that side too.
Well, there's, let me look. I counted them again just before I came here.
I'm
so I
counting
know
them
it's
right now, I just,
So we're counting 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6.
where?
Right up at the top. Here's 1,
Yeah,
2,
that's on the
3.
top, now on the bottom.
Yep. 4, and then this one right on the line, 5, this one right on the line, 6. Oh, I see one more. You're right. This one might have been
And I
counted
counted
as,
like
this one
26
might be counted as,
26 trees that are either coming out or you're flush cutting them to regenerate. So how are you allowing them to regenerate? Because basically, when you said that, oh, we're not vista pruning, remember we had the
Correct.
conversation?
Yes.
Because you're literally removing every tree within the view shed of that pool.
well, I think that the.
Every
tr-
tree.
Well, you know what, I'm sorry that I downloaded a picture and for some reason they're not coming up. If you would
Like,
give me a moment.
every tree in the B zone in that view for the
There-
pool, and then like a number of trees in the A zone. So that, I mean, that's just an observation, and the board can
Right.
deal with it. But if the board looks and marks, if you look on your plan and color code the trees, there's a lot more, at least on my plan.
So this is the portion,
Count.
this is the area of the property that has been
Yep,
managed
that's exactly where
significantly.
Kevin and I were crawling around today.
Yep. All to the north of that, there's a significant canopy of eastern red cedar, oak, and pitch
Okay.
pine to the north of that, as well as the oaks that I just showed you and the trees that I showed you on the southern portion. So this portion here is
Well-
heavily wooded and is to remain undisturbed, with the exception of these trees that are right on the edge, that have definitely been vista pruned, and then these down here. The ones that we were just looking at in those photos are these here,
Okay, so
the cut ones.
I'm gonna hold up a little thing. There's one tree that you're leaving.
Well, I should note that not all trees have been located on this plan. So we've only located some of the trees. BSS Engineering did not locate every tree on this site for the purposes of,
So I'd like you to go out and flag all the trees that are coming down, because we were just trying to figure it out.
sure.
And then color code a different color, the ones that you're going to flush cut
They,
and
they,
allow to regenerate.
they were,
Now,
they
are they
were
gonna regenerate into a bush tree?
no,
or-
into a tree, into a canopy-sized tree. That's why we chose these particular trees for regenerative pruning, because we think they can be managed
Also, let
back.
your client know that if we're removing all of the trees in the pool's view shed,
Yep.
that vista pruning, that's gonna be the vista pruning.
It may well be. Right now, there's a, if you
That's gonna be
stand.
the vista pruning.
If you stand at the height of where the cut is for the house, where the foundation came out, if you stand up on that slope and look over that, you have, with the previous cutting that was done, you have a very clear view of the water out here. So if you're standing at the height of this here, you're looking out over this and seeing a view. And
Yeah, and you're taking out all the trees that they formally.
not
planted.
all of them. No, there are more trees in here than are shown on this plan.
Okay, it's pretty heavily wooded. So
It's-
my other thing
yes.
is where you're actually putting the new trees is incredibly wooded, especially the trees closer to Racing Beach, because we had to battle our way into there.
It's mainly invasive understory vegetation, and the trees that we're proposing in here are amelanchier, so they're understory trees, because there are a lot of existing oaks down in this southern portion. When we get up into this northern portion, there are more eastern red cedars, so we're proposing to put some more eastern red cedars up in
Okay.
here in
think
areas
it's-
that support them.
And I know I talked to you about the native grasses, and I
Yes.
think it just, from a clarity thing, I think, we need to meet you out there.
Yeah, we can
Yeah,
definitely
yeah,
meet out there,
definitely.
sure,
'Cause-
absolutely.
But I want the trees flagged.
Yes,
Because, like, we were in there, it was really difficult for the staff to figure out the staking and everything out on that site
because
today.
there are so many buffer zones that are staked here, and then the property line is,
Okay.
yeah, I
Tom, did
understand
you
that.
stake that stone wall? Because we didn't see that out there. Did we? Oh, maybe that's,
There's
you
one-
said.
there's one stake for
One
that.
stake that said retaining wall.
I think I had it on,
I think we saw like
asked that he
one.
do it, but I'm not sure.
stake that said retaining wall, okay. So in the grass area, we're not proposing to remove the native shrubs?
No.
Just invasives and all of the trees?
Correct.
I'm just gonna tease you about that, because
Yes.
it's like all of the trees.
Yes. We're not, but
Okay.
I'm gonna push
You're-
back and
you're
say we're
gonna
not
love my
proposing
next
to remove
comment.
all of the trees. And we are only proposing to remove native, invasive shrubs
Okay.
from that area. Yeah, and
'Cause
vines.
I did
It's
call
mainly
you with some
vine.
concerns, because where we were standing on the boulders,
Yeah.
it was really, I said, difficult to figure out where that grass area was gonna be. So
Right.
if we could
If
somehow
we
in the
walk
field
the
stake
site,
that,
I know that the A zone is staked at reasonable intervals throughout, because that's
Yeah.
how we were able to locate everything.
Okay.
So I think if we go out to the site together and walk it, although I am concerned because all of the trees were flagged, so I don't know.
especially the pollarded ones, we were standing right on top of
Yeah.
them. I knew exactly what trees you were looking
Yes,
at.
yeah, they all had
We
pink
didn't see any
flagging.
flagging on them. And I
Okay.
mean, I could have missed it, but if you just go back
No,
and
you
double
wouldn't have
check-
missed it. It was, we
Like-
put clear pink flags on
Yeah.
it, so I think,
You
but
know?
it was in May, June, so that we did the flagging, so,
So
okay.
it was kind of hard to
Yeah, no, I
figure
think
out
we
what's
can go
going
out and, yeah.
Okay, and the only other comment I have is, I liked how you snuck in, not a lot of sweet fern.
Very little in the relative, count
relative,
of plants.
But, over half of the shrubs you're proposing to revegetate with are Maury's favorite 1 gallon blueberry bushes, her little
Yeah.
twigs.
Yep.
So,
Only
and
be-
that's almost over half of what you're proposing, because you said you had like 400 plus
Right,
shrubs.
480 shrubs, yeah.
480, so just under half, because you have 400,
Yeah.
226 twigs.
Well, mainly because that's what's existing currently on the site. So there's a mix of huckleberry and lowbush blueberry existing, as well as viburnum. So we're increasing the amount of viburnum. I think we're adding a significant.
I saw the sumac out there, you've got sumac out there.
Yes, we do, and we are also doing chokeberry as well as inkberry, which is actually existing, particularly on the northern portion of the lot, as well as.
Didn't run into too much rose out there.
There isn't, as I recall, there isn't, I think we're just doing some along the edge, so we're only doing 18 of them. And then we're doing 72 viburnum, 47 chokeberry, 34 inkberry, 14 beach plum, again, just taking advantage of some light spots where there's already some beach plum existing.
220.
6 low bush blueberry. Well, it's a huge area that we're restoring.
Yeah.
So I
Okay.
think you can see the low bush blueberry on the plan with the symbol of the little circle with the dot. So these are going to be just supplementing what's existing out in
Okay.
these areas. And mainly on the southern portion. There's a few on the northern portion, but mainly on the southern portion.
Okay. I think those were the only concerns we had. Like I said, it was difficult for us to figure out what was going on out there.
Mm-hmm.
So I think flagging the trees is gonna give me a better
Yeah.
visual
Yes, I
of
think
what
so.
is coming out.
Yeah, and I think you'll understand.
Definitely know that some of the really heavily damaged trees out there did not have flagging on them, because we
Okay.
were right on top of them.
Yeah.
Because we were looking at them going, look what they did.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, no, and those would have been the ones that you would have seen flagged. So I'm not sure why the flagging is not on them, but like I said, I haven't checked them in 3 months,
Nope.
so.
those are my only comments.
Okay.
With the trees, so I think we'll just have to go back out there for this lot anyway and look.
Courtney?
Yeah, it bothers me that there's this many trees coming out. I'm not gonna dwell on that. The swimming pool enclosure fence, why is that so far away from the swimming pool? Why can't you just locate it on the top of that retaining wall and confine all that there, and it leaves the area below undisturbed?
I think for 2 reasons. One is because it also acts as a safety fence for children playing in that yard space. And then the second reason is probably the most obvious ones, which is views. They want to be able to, it's been graded, and that pool wall's been graded, that it does not require the safety fence at the top of the wall. And the way the vegetation is going in there, it doesn't require that, and they don't want a fence in their view.
Yeah, I just,
And I'm
as a
just being,
general
I'm being
rule, I'd
frank.
like to see. I think these fences should be as close as possible to the pool enclosure and the immediate patio and that kind of stuff. Because now, this is a second project, actually down in Racing Beach, that we've seen where, and maybe you've been part of it, where
I
the,
don't think so.
where the fence is miles away from the pool, and I don't buy into that. I think it should be
It wasn't a Teresa
restricted.
project. It was a Tom project, though.
Yeah, well, okay.
You can't blame Teresa for
All right,
that.
I'll blame
Tom,
No.
Tom's sitting
But
right
it-
there. That was
No,
definitely a
I
Tom
mean,
project.
and that, I understand that there's some aesthetic issues and the kids play on the lawn and all that.
Yeah.
But I think those pool fences ought to be closer to the pool, and particularly where you're in a sensitive area, it seems to me there's something about fences having to have at least 2 feet of clearance or something underneath for allowing passage of wildlife in
Usually
certain areas.
six
Yeah, we can't
inches.
have that with a pool fence.
Obviously, you can't.
No.
So, but you can tighten the pool fence up. That's
So-
my point.
Generally, 6 inches is the acceptable
I
height.
understand what generally is, but.
Well, I
you
mean,
know,
for
I'd like you to
wildlife
take a
movement
hard
under the
look at that,
fence.
And maybe you could put your pool fence right at the bottom of your pressure-treated retaining wall, or a little bit further out, a couple of feet off, so that it confines that fence to the area where you're really dealing with the pool enclosure.
Okay. Yeah, I think again, it was twofold, and we did actually work on the fence location for a significant amount of time on this particular project as it shifted and morphed. But the chain link fence is there for double duty, and one of them is to just provide a safe space where nobody's now leaving that fescue lawn. The children aren't leaving that fescue lawn to run around. They're kind of contained in that area. And then obviously it acts as pool
understand.
fencing as well.
Every one of us has our quirks and the things that we're gonna focus on.
No, I completely understand. I'm just,
Pool fences
yeah,
are things I'm gonna focus on.
I understand.
Okay,
Yes.
no other questions?
Kevin?
I guess my biggest concern at this time is, there's no plan here for, as you said, all the problems seem to be packaged for Lot 14B. There's no plan to get approval for whatever you're calling where the house is. And they're just, walking away from all the problems on the lot down there.
On Lot 27? So there's actually a net decrease of structure on Lot 27, but in addition to that, we're doing about just over 10,000 square feet of restoration on Lot 27, even though there's a net decrease. So we're mainly, and most of the structure is outside of the B zone on Lot 27. So that's why I'm focusing mainly on Lot 14B, because that's where a significant amount of vegetation management is going to take place.
I still have that question.
So on Lot 27,
Most of the project is out of jurisdiction, and that's what I'm worried about, is that they designate part of the lot as a lot, separate, and all of the problems go with it.
I don't understand.
And a lot where they developed the house,
Isn't this all kind of one project?
it is one project,
People who are
yes.
building the house are
Eh,
gonna
you-
do what they're gonna do and,
you're saying it's one project, but for some reason, we have 2 lots
Yes,
and 2 addresses,
yes.
and I'm just nervous about that.
I think, Kevin, the thing is what Tom explained in the thing, they anticipated maybe possibly, and correct me if I'm wrong, Tom, some holdup. Was it always 2 parcels? Yeah,
Yes.
so it was always 2 parcels. They're
Okay,
treating it as one, but they wanted to keep them separate in case the vegetation management part got held up a little bit, that they still wanted to continue on the house, the construction of the house and the pool. Am I
okay,
wrong, Tom? Or is
I
that
just-
kind of, yeah,
Because as you
So-
said, the house is
yeah,
what a
okay.
smart strategy.
Yeah, it is.
yeah. anticipating we were gonna make Teresa go back out and flag her trees and everything else and give her a hard time.
No, but there's a lot going on 14B, so we anticipated that there would be a lot of questions about that. Yes.
It helps.
Does that help?
Thank you.
Okay.
Betsy.
I don't have any problem where your pool fence is. And I'd like to point out that the other pool fence was gonna be in an A zone, a heavily vegetated A zone, and we wanted.
I didn't bring it up, look at
No.
him.
No, I want you to reinforce that you remember that the other pool
I
fence was
remember it
gonna
was a
be in
Tom
the A
project.
zone. You remember it was gonna be in the A zone?
I
Tom?
remember exactly where it
We
was going.
digress.
We digress.
Remember,
here.
it's actually on a coastal bank,
Yes,
on-
Yes.
Yes.
down
yep,
the
and
top,
heavily
on a
vegetated,
heavily
yeah.
vegetated coastal
Right,
bank.
so I view that very differently
Yes.
from this.
This is in a B zone, and it respects the
It's in a B zone, it's
required
part of the
buffers.
yard, you're gonna have some kind of fence, you may as well have
All the
just one
boulders
fence.
were.
Anyway, I have no questions. I just wanted to make that comment, that you have to look at the site-specific reasons
She doesn't have any questions.
why things were. What was that?
No, I said, good, you didn't have any questions.
Didn't stop her,
Well, I
though, did it?
But,
stop
but
her, did it?
But I'm also gonna say, things, this is to my colleague on this side. There are differences in different areas, and I understand how you felt, and that was my initial reaction when I looked at this. But then the more I looked at it, and the more I realized how they were doing it, it doesn't bother me. I just wanna,
Well, I'm making my point.
and we can agree to
We can
disagree.
disagree on that.
Rule number 3, if you're gonna have a private conversation, take it outside. Russ, you're up.
I've got no problem with this.
Steve?
I don't have any problem with it, but I feel like I have to talk for a little while. No, I'm sorry. This is the most spectacular investment in ecological restoration that I've seen on my time on the Conservation Committee. Wandering through the site, which is virtually impossible from Racing Beach, I thought there was trails, but they didn't go anywhere. And somebody has hacked through the place
Yeah,
for a long time, not last year.
right.
And this is just amazing. There are obviously many more trees
Yes.
than are shown from
Yes.
the ones you're removing. And it's just the little signs that say this is, whatever, environmentally sensitive area, don't walk here.
Yeah.
I assume they were put up by some owners sometime in the past, but it truly is, and I expect that someday they may even ask for a conservation restriction on this piece of land, but, and it would be well-suited for that. Thank you.
Thank you.
Peter?
Yes, I have a question regarding the plot plan, difference between 2018 existing conditions and the 2019, and particularly two things. It's disorientating because one has the north one way, and the other one has north the other way, and the earlier one apparently has a lot more trees that are going to come down. Could you kind of address that?
I guess the first one, it's easy to say that the north is wrong on the previous plan, and that sometimes happens. But yeah, this north arrow on the one is wrong. We changed that because, all the trees, well, obviously at the time when this one, it's the existing conditions, and it was drawn as existing conditions and demolition, these plans, at the time we drew this plan, there was gonna be a bigger. Exactly. Okay. It was hemming and hawing, and it There's gonna be a bigger project. As Teresa said earlier, the project got considerably smaller as we were working on it. So at the time this plan was drawn, this is the plan that went with the larger of the projects, and there was clearing proposed way out here. The house was larger, the pool was larger,
So, Tom, we can safely ignore the 2018 drawing? What is that going to add?
you can ignore, as far as all the trees that we removed, yes, you can
Okay.
ignore it.
No further questions?
Thank you. Susan?
No, I don't have any further questions. I agree with Betsy's comment, and I'm looking forward to seeing where these trees are. I agree, it was hard to tell on the
Yeah.
properties.
Yeah, I understand. Yeah, without them being flagged, I can completely see that.
I mean, if the board wants to continue, at least the lower lot, to have the trees flagged in the field, if you want a visual, that's fine. If you're all comfortable with it, Teresa can flag them and we can do a pre-construction, Teresa.
Absolutely.
Board's fine with the trees coming down, and you don't wanna see them flagged in the field, that's fine. I do, but I can see them at a pre-construction meeting. But if Susan or Betsy, or, it's up to you guys.
I'm comfortable with
You're comfortable?
it as it is.
That leaves you, Susan, you okay?
I'm okay, if the rest of the board
Okay.
is all right.
I mean, I would like them, but I can see them, if the board's okay with the overall concept of the project, I can see them in the field when Teresa flags. Can you reflag them for me? And then we'll do like a.
Yeah, absolutely.
Pre-work meeting?
Yeah, we could get out next week, reflag them, and then set up a meeting and do a
Yeah,
walkthrough.
let's do that then.
Okay,
If the board's
perfect.
comfortable, we can do that.
Excellent,
Okay,
okay,
I won't hold it up for my visual.
okay.
I'll just work with you on the back end of that.
Yeah, and I think you'll see, the trees that
hard,
you
like I said.
suspected I would have flagged
Yeah.
are the ones that were flagged, yes.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And I texted you as soon as we got off the site and said,
Yeah.
I'm confused.
I know.
And Kevin was standing right on top of that boulder pile.
yeah. Yeah, we, spent a lot of time out there, just sort of triangulating off of the Tom's stakes when we were originally out there flagging the trees, so I understand. And there were 3 of us out there doing it at the same time, so, yeah.
I was using the house on the other lot as my kind of like
Yeah,
point and
yeah.
trying to figure stuff out, so. All right,
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to make a motion to close 27 Racing Beach Ave.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second for 27. One question before we go any further on the, just want to clarify, you've effectively designed the Vista View into this.
We have, we're not proposing any vista management, and if after the house is constructed, there seems to be any need for vista management, we would come back to the commission at that time for any other proposed vista management. We're not proposing any additional vista pruning at this time.
Okay. All right, we have a motion and a second. Any further discussion from the board? Any public comments? Hearing none, we'll call for the vote to close 27. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? It is unanimous.
I'll make a motion to close the hearing on Lot 14B, 0 Racing Beach Ave.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second to close 14B. Any further discussion from the board? Any public comments? Hearing none, I'll call for the vote. All those in favor of closing 14B, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? It is unanimous. Thank you both.
Thank you.
See, not too painful for those of you who just came. Just had one. I see somebody in the back who's gonna be here for this for a while, though.
I had to open these one at a time.
Very good.
Well, I had a
Hey,
bunch,
Mike.
because I had to open them one at a time. Sorry. Meaning you're-
Betsy, I
Potentially
apologize.
stalling.
I apologize for muttering when you were commenting. I apologize.
So Teresa, just give me a call next week,
Yeah,
and we'll get out there.
okay, great, thank you.
Yeah.
Next up, Hammond Pond Parkway LLC, 14 Ridge Road, North Falmouth, Mass, for permission to raise, R-A-Z-E, and rebuild the existing dwelling, construct a new addition and deck, relocate the existing driveway, install a new Title V septic system, and perform all associated grading and landscaping.
Jen, can I ask you for assistance here?
How do you think existing
Okay. Thank you.
I mean, it's splitting hairs, but you're raising the house, you're not rebuilding
Yeah,
it.
okay, thanks,
We
Mike.
talked about that last week.
Yeah,
I
thank
know.
you.
Okay. You don't raise and rebuild.
Raise and build.
Okay, okay.
You don't construct a new addition on a
Got
new house.
It was written. We'll work on that. Stop picking on Kevin. We will work on that.
Hi, my name is Kelly Durfee Cardoza, and I'm here to represent the applicants, Ron and Lisa Simons, who are also here with me. The site is located at 14 Ridge Road, at the intersection of Ridge Road and Dairy Lane. Ridge Road runs from Wild Harbor Road out to Rand's Canal. It's a 2.6-acre parcel that has frontage on Rand's Canal, and the house was constructed in 1963. The Simons purchased this property in early 2019. For those of you who feel like this is deja vu, we were here in June. It's the same site. The notice of intent that was filed at that time anticipated repair of the existing house and remodeling of it, some driveway modifications and tree removal and landscaping. The board issued that order on July 15th, and the only work that's been constructed on that order to date was the removal of the trees and some flagstones from the lower lawn. Once they got into the house, it became apparent that it was not going to be easily renovated. So at this point, the notice of intent that we're filing right now includes demolition of the house, saving of the foundation, so they'll reuse that foundation, and modifications and realignment to the driveway, and a new septic system, because we're going from essentially a 4-bedroom house to a 6-bedroom house. If you look at this existing conditions plan, you'll see that Holmes McGrath flagged the wetlands. There's a large area of bordering vegetated wetland. There'll be no impacts to that as part of the project. Let's see here. This red line is land subject to coastal storm flowage and is essentially elevation 15. So everything that's down here is below elevation 15, and the house and in this area is above elevation 15. This kind of blue-green color is the top of Coastal Bank, and it runs like that. This is essentially the front lawn of the house. There's a deck that overlooks the water at this point, and that area is mowed and maintained on a regular basis. And then here is the Zone A, and then this is the limit of Zone B. So these are some existing conditions photos. This is the existing driveway off of Ridge Road. So as you're driving down Ridge Road, it kind of goes into the trees. This is a heavily wooded lot, and it's an unpaved driveway. If you continue going a little bit further along Ridge Road, you'll see that there is a brick driveway here, and this is the face of the garage. There's the stockade fence at this location, and then there is a white fence that blocks access down to Ridge Road because it's a private road. I'm going to use this plan again. This is the existing conditions plan to kind of talk about the demolition phase. What's going to be removed is the brick driveway that's here. As we come around, there's a walkway at this location. This deck, the house, will be demolished again. The foundation will be saved. There's a concrete pad here that will be removed. There's a concrete patio at this location that will be removed. This deck and the walkway up to this deck will be removed as well, and then the purple septic system that's shown right here. This is where the picture was of the driveway that's entering at this location. And I just want to make a note that the driveway comes in and does a circle here. This westerly edge of the house has always been the primary entrance to the house. And so we know that the driveway has come in this way, and then historically, the driveway has come in here through the coastal bank. And there's some photos that we looked at the last time. So again, there's no impact in the bordering vegetated wetland. The coastal bank, the impact is really limited to some replanting in this area. An additional tree that's being planted that was required as part of the old notice, and then the removal of this, this shed is right adjacent to the top of the coastal bank. So this is the proposed conditions plan. This dark blue color is the same foundation that we had before. This is the new deck that would be located here. It is extending out towards the top of coastal bank, the same distance as the existing retaining wall. This is the new wing of the house that will run parallel to Ridge Road. The brick driveway that was here will be vegetated as a grass lawn, and there'll be a paved small access that will come into the back of the garage here. The driveway at this location, you'll notice that the driveway is shortened significantly. It used to come all the way to the westerly edge here, and so now it will just come in, and the entrance to the garage will be from the interior of the site rather than on Ridge Road. The septic system, which was kind of this rectangle here, will be removed and abandoned, and there'll be a new septic system constructed here for a 6-bedroom house. Based on the changes that have occurred between 1963 and now, the system will be mounded a little bit. So we have some additional tree removal that will occur in this area as well. The shed that was located here will be removed. The kayak rack that's located here will be removed. And this replanting was something that was provided in the last order. So this isn't new planting, this is just something that I transferred, I guess, if you will, to this plan, as well as the planting of the trees that were required in the other order. See, these are the photos that show how the coastal bank was used in the past. This one's from 1968, the bottom one is from 1975. You can see the house here. This was the old driveway that came in, and the circle that occurred on the westerly end of the house. Again, you can kind of see it in 1975. We could see shadows of it in 1991, but I think it's safe to say that sometime after 1975, they chose to use the other driveway that they're currently using now. In addition to the aerial photos, we engaged somebody to do some GPR work, ground penetrating radar. They came in, and the dielectric readings across the area where we found a number of patches of asphalt indicated that about a foot down there is a layer of asphalt, and they believe that that was consistent with the driveway that we've seen there, and that's shown on your plans. This is just briefly how the GPR process works. They run the transmitter, and a signal is sent down. It reflects off of that different layer, and in this case, that different layer is the asphalt, and comes back to a receiver. And so that's how the information was generated that's been shown on the plan. This is, again, the same plan that we were looking at of the proposed conditions. If we look at the top of the coastal bank here, and the Zone A and the Zone B, I'm gonna just go to my notes so I get you exactly. So in Zone A, we're gonna demolish the existing dwelling, the deck, the portion of the concrete patio, the walkway, a timber retaining wall that's in this area. We're gonna construct that new dwelling on the existing foundation. We're gonna move the driveway out of the Zone A, this circle that was here, back to this location. We're gonna demolish that shed, and we're gonna revegetate in here and in this area right here. We're gonna add dry wells to manage the flow from downspouts and gutters. There's some grading shown on the plan, and there is also some landscaping that's been transferred from the old order. Under the existing conditions, there's 5,014 square feet of impervious area now. Under the future conditions, there'll be a reduction of 1,266 square feet of impervious area in Zone A, and it's essentially the result of moving that driveway out and shortening it up. The area within Zone B, we're going to, again, demolish this portion of the building, the deck that was located here, the walkways, the portion of this brick driveway in this area, and there was a rinse station here on the edge of the deck. We're going to construct that new dwelling that's located here, part on the existing foundation and part on the new foundation. We'll relocate that driveway, and you can see that a portion of that driveway here falls into the Zone B. The septic tank is just outside of the Zone B here. We'll be adding dry wells to manage the flow from the downspouts and the gutters. They'll be grading as shown on the plan. There's a 3-foot fence here. That fence is an area that will be grassed and accessible from the house, and that's where they'll be able to let their dogs out. So there was a dog lawn in the last plan, and this is the one that's located in this plan as well. We are going to remove one additional tree to put this pathway in so that the pathway can come in here for a golf cart to come into that part of the garage. There'll be landscaping and tree planting that's been shown on the landscape plan. 7 of the 9 trees that were proposed for planting in Zone B were required from the last order. So again, they've been transferred onto this plan. And that tree that we're taking out is a 20-inch red oak. Under the existing conditions in Zone B, there's 3,572 square feet of impervious area, and under the future condition, there will be a reduction of 194 square feet of impervious area. So the restoration plantings that are proposed for the site include 1,560 square feet of native shrubs, and they'll be arrowwood, viburnum, highbush blueberry, and witch hazel, and they're shown on the landscape plan. The trees that are removed in zones A and B under the former order will be replaced with native trees consistent with the landscape plan, but because there's been some changes in how the house is oriented, we've moved some of those trees. So they're still on the plan, they've just been relocated. The 8 trees will include red cedars, a flowering dogwood, shadblow, and tupelo, and will be 2.5 to 3 inch caliber or a height of 6 feet. In Zone B, we removed 7 trees under the former order, and this additional tree right here is requested to be removed, and so they'll be replaced with 9 trees, which will include American hollies, shadblow, tupelo, and flowering dogwood, and will be similar in size. And 18 native trees will be planted as identified on the landscape plan, just so you have a summary. And I'm happy to answer any questions if you have them.
Susan, you want to start?
I don't have any questions just at this point.
Stephen?
Is the electrical service going to be modified, or is that going to, is this existing and going to stay where it was?
So the existing service is out, I can probably show you in a picture. Let's see. So it's right here. I think, is that going to stay in the same place?
Electric service?
Yes.
Okay. No further questions.
Thank you. Steve?
Great, I like the last plan, I like this one better, thank you.
I'm all set, Mr. Chairman.
Betsy?
No questions, thanks.
Kevin?
No questions, thank you.
Courtney?
My only question is about the foundation. You had an engineer certify that it can handle a new construction on top of it?
I'm gonna ask the owner, but I think the answer is yes. I know they didn't wanna go through this again. They
No,
didn't.
I understand, and so that's why I'm asking the question.
What we did is we
Ron,
Please
yeah,
come up to the
to come up here.
podium, thank you.
Thank you, Ronald Simons. What we did is we dug down a couple of pits, test pits, down below the foundation to see if we had footings, and there were footings in that particular wall. It's a block wall, and our structural engineer has deemed that it can be built upon. Thank you.
Thank
We're
you.
gonna need that for the permit anyway, so. Okay. Any further?
I only asked the question is,
Yeah,
so if it doesn't work and you gotta come back to us, you'd rather not do that.
Yeah, well, that way it's been discussed. Any further discussion from the board? Huh? Please do.
Want to make a motion to close the hearing and take it under advisement?
Second.
Second.
Okay, so we have a motion and a second. Is there any further discussion from the board? Public comment? You'll have to come up to the podium and give your name for the record, please.
So, our family has owned the house right next door to this one, about 40 feet away, since about 1970.
You have to tell us who you are.
Oh, I'm sorry, the Cabots, Cabot family, North Falmouth, Ford Ridge Road. So I'm worried about, we're accustomed to all the trees, we saw the action, and I've been planting trees every weekend for 3 months up against the border, so, and I talked to Lisa. She doesn't want to see us, we don't want to see her, and that's great. But I'm worried about the septic, because the new septic is inching closer, and they're up and we're down, and it's about 35, I'm terrible at measurements, but I'd say about 35, 40 feet from our septic. So I'm worried about, I'm an organic gardener, so I'm worried about that, so.
Yeah, I mean, so they have to get a permit from the Board of Health as
So
well.
they'll be-
So that
they'll be
septic has to
checking
be
that out.
designed adequately.
I like my garden. Everybody wants a view of the water, not me. I'm really happy with what I have, so I'm okay. It's, as I said to Lisa, I understand it's a beautiful piece of property, enjoy it, it's yours. But
Looks like
I
it's gonna
want
be
my
nice and
garden, right?
Yeah, I mean,
The health
again,
department has to give a permit.
Good,
Yeah.
okay.
I mean, it'd
So I
be an
just wanted to be
engineered
sure, you can
system,
tell
so-
I'm nervous, this is, I mean, I hated to come forward. You're happy with your house, you wanna do things, and I get it, but I just like growing tomatoes, right?
Mr. Chairman, can I ask a question? How far off the side setback does the septic have to be?
10 feet.
10 feet. So ma'am, just to, the closest point where that septic is gonna be to your house is 45, a little over 45, plus another 10 to yours, so you're looking at like 55 feet. And then on the other side of that septic, it's like almost 65 feet to your property line, so add another 10.
Okay, so I just wanna be, I'm not an
Just
expert,
scaling
but
it off on the plan,
Thank you.
so just to kind of.
that's all, I just
The
wanna be
elevation
sure.
difference.
Yeah, it's the elevation, I don't have the elevation.
Because they're up and I'm down, so like, even planting
Yeah,
all
you're
these
going like
trees,
this.
exactly, even planting all these trees, I'm at the compost pile every weekend, hucking compost on, trying to make a little berm, trying to bring it up, and I saw those flags coming nearer, and I thought, you know?
Yeah.
So, I thought it was a genuine concern, so I just want to express it, and I'm glad that somebody else is thinking about it, that's all.
Yeah, we're glad you came up, though.
Thank you.
Thank
You're
you.
afraid of us.
Thank you.
That was a nice presentation.
Any further public comment? All right, we have a motion and a second. Close the hearing, take it under advisement. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? We're unanimous. Thank you, Kelly. Thank you. Next up, Michael O'Brien, 331 Edgewater Drive West, East Falmouth, Mass. For permission to reconstruct a garage. Mr. Boselli.
So much paper. Where are we?
331
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the commission. For the record, my name is Michael Borselli from Falmouth Engineering, and I represent the applicant, Michael O'Brien. The property is at 331 Edgewater Drive West. It may look familiar to you because you've issued two previous orders of conditions on this. One to rebuild the existing pier, and one to rebuild the existing wood bulkhead. Both orders are still open. The pier has been constructed, the wall reconstruction has not occurred. The property has frontage on Eel Pond, so the wetland resources include land under the ocean. There's a small strip of coastal beach. There is a band of salt marsh, and there's a coastal bank formed partially by the bulkhead and partially by a unarmored slope on the north side of the lot. There's currently on the property a single-family dwelling, lawn areas, and other typical appurtenances. There's also a detached garage and driveway that are in the location that we're proposing to tear down and build a new detached garage. One thing that's not shown on the plan that I neglected to show is, and you may recall, there's an outside shower here. So I will add that to the plan and continue the hearing as necessary to add that. There was a requirement to mitigate for that with plantings in this area I'm circling with the mouse. So I can add that to the plan just for consistency in the two plans. So the proposal is to tear down the detached garage, remove the pavement in and around that garage, and then rebuild and reorient the garage in a different shape. The parking will be adjacent to the garage. Between the garage and the street is away from the wetland resources. You can see, in addition to the wetland resources, I described the house in the property has a boundary, flood boundary shown in blue here. To the water side is a VE14, to the landward side is AE12. So the garage is also proposed in flood hazard zone AE12. If you make note of in the middle of the plan at the bottom are some impervious surface calculations that itemize the existing current impervious surfaces and the proposed impervious surfaces. They're outlined on the plan. And if you make reference to them, you'll see that there's, the project was actually designed to result in a no net increase of impervious surfaces in Zone A, and there's actually a decrease in Zone B. So for that reason, there's no requirement for mitigation planting. We're proposing dry wells to contain roof runoff, and they will be located just on the corners of the building underneath the driveway on the street side. We're proposing to use a silt fence as a limit of work, and that's shown in red in this location. And that basically sums up the project. So it's a buffer redevelopment project, and I believe it's been designed to conform with FWR 10.18. I'm happy to answer any questions.
Mike, when you go, put the, shower on, can you put the area shells on too? The shells behind the existing shed? Kevin was out there?
Okay, sure.
Yeah, just add that, nothing else. No, we're good, yeah.
Mike, do you have the limit of work on this plan?
I do. I highlighted it on this rendered version, but there's a red line here
Oh, I'm
with
sorry.
little circles. It's like a fence symbol,
Yeah,
and it's proposed to be a silt fence.
I saw it staked, so,
Yeah.
Mhm.
thank you. Russ, you wanna start?
Like, just, I'm curious, how high off the ground is that deck?
That's a second-story deck, cantilever deck.
Okay.
There's a unfinished potential future playroom above the garage, and that would be part, and that's been incorporated. We counted that as impervious surface area.
Okay. Thank you, well said.
Steve, the existing drive or paved area north of the existing garage slab, it's not a slab though, there's a garage there, right?
There's a garage there, yes. Yep.
So will all that be removed to the
Yes.
north?
Yes, I think you're referring to, and I'm gonna zoom in on it. There's a very faint line here.
Right, exactly.
Yeah, that's all pavement, that's to be removed. And not, and just be converted to grass, and the driveway will be out on the street side.
Okay.
So that was one of the reasons that we were able to demonstrate we didn't have an increase in impervious surfaces.
I understand. And there's no path from the proposed parking area to the house? You just cut across the lawn?
Yeah.
Okay, that's all I have, sir.
Peter?
In the existing conditions, you have a brick walk between the existing house and the area of the garage,
Yes,
and the proposed is bluestone pavers, approximately the same area. Is there any net reduction in using the bluestone pavers as opposed to the brick walk in your calculations?
not specifically comparing the two walks, but if you look in your package, we calculated the existing impervious surfaces, including the brick walk you can see in the background. We incorporated, or added that to the overall impervious surfaces, including the driveway and the building. So we had an inventory of those surfaces today, and then we compared the overall new impervious surfaces, which included the bluestone pavers as proposed. So they effectively were a trade. So the walkways effectively traded for each other. So there was, because of that, there was no net increase due to the walkways.
Okay, so the impervious surfaces on the proposed site plan is only taking into account the bluestone pavers themselves, not anything, any spacing of,
Right, there may be a gap between of grass that these are 2x2 pavers, so we just did the math.
no more question.
No questions. Thank you.
I have no questions.
Kevin?
No questions.
Courtney?
No questions.
All right.
Make a motion, close the hearing and take it under
We gotta have the revised plan for the shower.
Make a motion to continue.
Sorry,
to-
guys.
to What date?
Mike, if you're just putting the revised shower on,
Open
And
for
the shells.
6th?
I mean,
It
you're
doesn't
here.
have to be, if you want it to be the 20th, it's fine, but.
No, it can be, it absolutely can be on the 6th. You're gonna
Okay.
be here that night anyway, right?
Mhm.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, you can have the 6th.
So I make a motion to continue to 11/6.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any further discussion from the board?
Why did they do that?
Any comments from the public? call for the vote to continue until 11:06. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? It is unanimous. Somebody pile of junk out here. Next up, Daniel McMillan, 71 Moonpenny Lane, Falmouth, Mass. For permission to construct a new single-family dwelling and to perform associated clearing, grading, and landscaping.
Thank you again, Mr. Chairman. For the record, Michael Borselli, Falmouth Engineering, and I represent the applicant. This property is a vacant lot on Moonpenny Lane. It has frontage on Moonpenny Lane. The outline of the lot has been shaded in a green color. It's a pork chop lot, if you will. And the main body of the lot is fronting on a salt marsh. And the salt marsh fronts on the waters of Bourne's Pond, where the pond itself is some distance from the salt marsh edge, so it's off the page. So the wetland resources in question are salt marsh, and there's a very narrow bordering vegetated wetland. And then there's a slope up from the BVW that is within land subject to coastal storm flowage, so it meets the definitions to be a coastal bank. And the top of the coastal bank is defined on the plan in this location. The entirety of the lot is in flood hazard zone AE12, so the base flood elevation is 12. And the elevations on the land where the house is proposed averaged elevation 10 to 11. We've shown the associated no disturbance zone A from the salt marsh and A from the top of bank. Since the no disturbance zone from the salt marsh is 100 feet, there is no B. From this type of coastal bank, the no disturbance zone A is 50 and the outer buffer B is 50, and so they're shown on the plan. So this is a buffer zone project. It's not redevelopment because the lot is vacant. It's heavily wooded lot with a significant number of trees on it. So the project has been designed, since it is a vacant lot, to have no activities proposed other than some planting improvements in a no disturbance zone A. So all work is proposed only in the outer buffer zone B of coastal bank and in land subject to coastal storm flowage. So we have shown a limit of work right along the edge of the no disturbance zone A to salt marsh. And the proposed house was designed by by Gian Pietro Architects to fit into this shape of the lot. And it's been oriented to, be directed towards the salt marsh. There's a long meandering driveway from Moonpenny that enters a one-car garage shown on the south side, and there's a septic system shown on the narrow part of the lot that's more than 100 feet from all wetland resources. There are dry wells shown. The house has been designed so that it maintains a minimum of 10 feet at the closest point from the limit of work, which is a requirement in your regulations as well, to make sure that there's no encroachment into the no disturbance zone A to the salt marsh. I stated earlier that the lot is heavily wooded, although no trees show on the plans that you have. So I know at least one member may have a question about why aren't there trees shown on the plan. We made a decision when we surveyed this lot, since it was so heavily wooded, that it would be difficult and labor-intensive to show all the trees in the, there must be there's at least 75 trees in the buffer zone. So we did not show them. However, what you don't have in front of you, but what I can submit and request a continuance is, we now have surveyed all the trees in and around where the house is in the outer buffer zone B, because when we staked the house, it gave us an opportunity to locate all the trees. So I have shown them on this exhibit, and I can continue the hearing and provide you with a plan. We did intend to effectively cut all the trees in and around the house and in the B zone only, because we're not allowed to do any clearing in the A zone. So there's a specific section of FWR 10.18 that talks about 10.185 says no mitigation buffer plantings are required for work within a zone B where the existing natural vegetative buffer for zone A is met, meaning the zone A is undeveloped, so you couldn't approve a project that altered the zone A if it was undisturbed, so, and we wouldn't propose a project that would alter zone A. So we've confined everything to the zone B, and there are a series of trees, because this is an entirely wooded lot, that will be removed to make way for this house. This section also does say, although there's no mitigation required, that improvements will be made. So that sometimes can be difficult. How do you improve a buffer on that's undeveloped? Or how do you make improvements? So we did propose on this plan, and it's in this lighter green color, that the understory of these trees is somewhat thin, and it seemed like a good idea to improve the buffer by providing some understory plantings right up near and adjacent to the limit of work, so they'd act sort of like a natural shrub barrier to the activities in and around the house. So we had proposed there to be some additional shrub layer, and we proposed some plants that can tolerate the shade, arrowwood viburnum and wild raisin, 3-gallon size, 4 feet on center, in a staggered row to make sort of a 10-foot wide sort of live no disturbance or limit of work, if you will. We're also proposing dry wells, of course, to contain roof runoff. And since the project's in a flood zone AE12, you have a requirement that the minimum elevation of the first floor must be 13, and that's noted on the plan as well. I think that sums it up, and I'm happy to answer questions.
Okay. Jim?
I'll leave the tree comment to Betsy.
I'm sure I'm not the only one who noticed that.
Mike, I just have a very question. Do you have architecturals, or have you seen the architecturals for this yet?
I have seen them. Yep.
So where you have 17 on the back side of the house?
17?
Yeah, so the distance 17, that's that little section of the house?
Yeah.
Okay, yeah, right by the AC units?
Yeah, I'll zoom in on it.
Do you know, or do you remember what is that area?
I don't remember.
Do you have the architectural with you?
No, they're in my computer at the office.
I'm just concerned that that just deck area seems a bit small to me in some comparisons of some other similar sized houses with outdoor spaces, so I just want to make sure that where that 17 is, there's not like a French door or, atrium door or something like that that would have to lead out to a patio or anything. Cause we'll have to flag it at the building permit, you know, if they're gonna have to have an egress or they're gonna wanna deck it out. So I'm just kinda curious if you remember what that was.
I don't remember, but I can
Okay.
see it's a, sort of a notch, it's sort of it's begging to be something, but
Yeah,
I.
and that's gonna move
I don't-
way closer to that 100-foot mark, so,
Sure, I understand, but there was no proposed deck or nothing that indicated it'd be a patio or
or
anything.
there's not like, okay. Just, you know, just something I'm looking at the plan, I just picked up on like,
Mhm.
okay.
I can say this, I discouraged these folks from it, but there's a contemplation of a small pool, in this area. And,
They won't be able to fit it.
I don't know if they're still gonna pursue that, but I thought it best to go forward with the more important part of the project and then see how things work out for the pool in the future. But there is a possibility of a small, like, plunge pool. They seem to be a new thing now. But as of right now, there's no plan to do a pool.
Mike, if you wanted to do a pool in that area, staying 15 feet off of that 100-foot,
I mean, 10 feet.
you only have, like, staying 10 feet, I'm sorry, 10 feet or so off of that,
Yeah.
you only have 15 feet between, 15, 17 feet from that to that garage or deck,
Yeah, we talked about that. I've talked
Yeah.
about that. That was a concern I had.
and we're gonna have to move that and make sure that overdig for that pool.
Sure, I understand.
It's gonna be tight.
But I'm only making reference to it because it was a consideration. It could end up being more patio or something else, but as of right now, there's nothing proposed.
Okay,
Makes sense.
that's it. Unless, Kevin, you have any?
Okay. Betsy, you wanna start?
Troublemaker.
Mm-hmm.
Troublemaker. So I have a question. So,
For me or for Mike?
yeah, no, not for
Okay.
Mike. Not for you yet.
Okay.
Yes.
So, so you walk in these woods here, and it's a pretty bare floor. You're comfortable with what Mike's suggesting?
I mean, he's trying to improve it, I mean, would you say it looks like somebody's been maintaining or managing that area?
I mean, I haven't seen any stumps or anything out there. Did you guys see any?
No, but it does look like maybe, you know, some of these small woody things are easy just to
Yeah.
cut and pull off.
I don't know, I think adding the shrubbery does improve it.
Yeah.
There's nothing there right now, and
Right, right,
but
right.
it is creating a transition from an area of lawn area to the mature forest.
Yep. And maybe some of those plants will keep spreading.
Mhm.
Marsh.
Anything for Mike?
No, Mike knew what my question was. You didn't notice how tactful he just kept
He did
looking
that.
down the whole board. He didn't
He did.
stare right at me.
He did.
Can I ask a question, though, about trees in general for the policy? Because there was a project earlier where there were a lot of trees that they didn't show in the plan. In these cases, do you expect all the trees on the plan?
Well, I'll let Jen answer that, but here's my concern. You go out to that area, and those trees are in pretty good shape, and they're kind of well-spaced and stuff. But there are too many sites where you go out and you see that, and then you visit the site 5 years later, and it's like, only a third of the trees are there. Where are the rest of them? So if there was another method that you had to demonstrate. Yeah, an aerial photograph or some,
Well,
I'd
just
like-
something
I
on
would at
record to
least-
show what's there,
something
so
on
that.
record to show.
Well, I just noted heavily wooded buffer, and when I staked it for you folks to view, I had all the trees that had anyone that might think about cutting trees in and around the house for construction shown, including, if you look, I'm gonna zoom in on it. You can see this is the 100-foot no disturbance zone. So I went in and I located all the trees that were candidates for possible removal without permission, if I could say it that way, someday. So you'd have a inventory of them,
Right, right.
but I didn't go all the way to the salt
Yeah,
marsh.
And I understand that.
Yeah, so
I
that's,
mean, some of these areas are very heavily, they're solidly.
I mean, I would challenge you to be able to even figure it out on the ground. This, you know, if you had the plan with every tree, you would be like confused.
Oh, I can tell you that I've had other people do that for projects. Every tree.
Yeah, I understand that, but
I
so,
mean, Mike, I was just gonna make the suggestion to do the trees between the salt marsh. And this is because it's a heavily wooded lot that hasn't been developed yet, so don't take this as we can do this on every lot. But like I said, I see what you did in between the 100-foot
yeah.
or the no disturbance coastal bank to the salt marsh.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, Betsy, if you're comfortable with that many, we're fine with it.
Yeah, I mean, I'm comfortable, I just like it. I mean, that's, what you have up there is not what I had in the field today.
No, because I
Right.
hadn't measured the trees at that point. When I staked it, when they were out there, I had them measure the trees.
Yeah.
you have a copy of that one for us?
I do. I have one.
Yeah, I
Gonna
suppose,
submit it, don't worry.
Yeah.
yeah.
If you wanna continue it because of, I know there's a new policy about, you know, that could cause a little confusion, I'm happy to just hand it in tomorrow and you could close the hearing on the 6th, if there's, unless there's other things you need me to address.
Let's see if anybody has anything else to address.
Yeah, I guess, was I the first person?
Yes.
Oh, sorry
all
to
set?
cause all that discussion.
I won't say it. Kevin?
I have no other questions.
Wait my turn.
No, no real questions other than if you look at the shape of the house and the size of the little deck or whatever it is on the end, it'd be nice to visit the place in 2 years and see what was actually constructed out there.
We get the opportunity to do that for you, Kevin.
At compliance time.
I'm all set.
Courtney?
No questions.
Russ? No questions. Steve?
Thank you. I noticed the vent pipe on this property. Oh, Kevin.
He
You
noticed
already
it too.
addressed that with Mr. Newton?
I'm sorry, he noticed it too. And I think you're
I
gonna
was
ask me.
with him.
Oh, okay. I don't know what it is.
What was it?
Oh, you know, there's a vent pipe. A 6-inch
Septic
vent
vent
pipe.
from the other house?
I think it was, I'm gonna zoom in where I think you saw it, cause I saw something somewhere in
It's right near
here.
your proposed septic system.
Yeah, but it's hard to orient yourself because it's a pork chop lot
Yeah,
where the
yeah,
property
yeah.
line is.
It's on the left.
It was up
It's near that,
by the turn.
Yeah, I thought it might be a monitoring well for some study that was done on Bourne's Pond a long time ago. It's not a gooseneck like you'd have for a
Right.
septic vent. It's just a PVC pipe that could be a monitoring well for groundwater or something.
You can see
Or
easily
6
6
scrap that
feet
somebody
down.
threw and it stood up?
Yeah, could be.
No, you can see there's something at the bottom about 6 or 8 feet down.
Could be groundwater.
Yeah.
But it's not related to anything that you know,
That's all I had, Mr. Chairman. Thank you.
Okay, Peter?
No questions.
Susan?
No questions.
All right. So,
So what's the continue date to?
Mike, if it's groundwater, did you do you did a perk test?
yeah,
Why did you
groundwater.
get groundwater?
Groundwater's at like elevation 1. We know that.
Now I'm thinking, when you dig the foundation, are you gonna hit water?
Well, don't forget it's in a flood zone. You can't have a full
It's on
base.
Oh, yeah, you're right, sorry.
And we actually have to, because of the ground surface where the septic is about elevation 8.
Yeah,
You'll see a proposed 9.5 we're, in a proposed 10, we're doing a very, very minor regrading to make sure we have enough cover over the septic. But it meets the septic system, 5-foot setback to groundwater and
Okay.
all of that stuff.
Okay, thank you.
Do we have a date?
I'm gonna put this one on the 6th too. Hang on. Yeah, I mean, we have four notices, 3 amendments on the 6th.
Well, this shouldn't be.
Yeah, I mean, you can put this
We
on
already
the
have it
6th
done,
as the
right?
other one. It's easy, we just
Unless
close
there's
it.
something else, I was just gonna submit the plan and I'll do it tomorrow and it'll be ready to go,
May I make a motion to continue to the 6th?
please.
Second.
It's fine.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any further discussion from the board?
Excuse me.
Any comments from the public? Hearing none, I'll call for the vote. All those in favor of continuing, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Unanimous.
Thank you.
Next up, request to amend the existing order of conditions. Lisa Lyden, 43 and 45 Dusty Miller Road, Falmouth, Mass. For permission to amend DEP number 25-4389 to revise the footprint of the house, install a swimming pool, and increase mitigation plantings.
Well, that's that.
His announcement.
Thumb drive in, it's, I'm here.
Look at,
I'm here.
I'm here. I'm Tom Bunker with BSS Design, representing Lisa Lyden at 43 and 45 Dusty Miller Road. We had this plan from 2018, July of 2018, was approved, and this house at 45 Dusty Miller Road is under construction. The house, garage, you got a septic system going on in the back, and this is an existing house, previously existing house at 43 Dusty Miller Road. And as part of this plan, there's this patio area in between, proposed in between the two houses. It's in a little bit of zone A, I think the zone A line. One of these confusing plans. Here's the Zone A line running through the house and along this area. This is Zone A of a coastal bank that's down along Dusty Miller Road. Zone A is running right through here and back to Zone B. So basically all of this area is in Zone B, a little bit in Zone A. It's also in flood zone. It's not in a flood zone. There is a velocity zone out here. It runs, velocity zone actually runs up Dusty Miller Road in this location. A dune on this lot. Zone A for the dune is here, and the Zone B. But as I said, this is the Zone B for Coastal Bank. So what we're proposing, plan you have is this one. And I'll show you another one, but basically on this, I'm gonna put in a swimming pool. They tried getting a swimming pool somewhere else on the lot, and it there was nowhere it could go. So rather than the larger patio and water features and all, they have the patio and a water feature you can swim in, and a pergola out behind it. And there was a bit of patio removed, and this little circular patio with a fire pit up here. I can show you. So this plan is color-coded somewhat. So this area here, the brown, this brown is what's being added. And the green area said there's a small patio out back is removed. And basically, this whole patio area shifted away from house number 43 towards house number 45 a little bit. And so there was added patio here, like I said, added patio, so it shifted away from Dusty Miller Road, with the exception of this one circular patio, and there we have the pool in the middle of it. I do have some calculations, and this is done per lot, but there is the existing, on the approved plan, 68 square feet of coverage in the Zone A, and on the proposed plan now, and this is on lot 45, on house number 45 lot, there's 45 square feet, so there's a decrease of 23 square feet in Zone A. And on Zone B, there's the 836 square feet of coverage in Zone B, and 977 square feet in Zone B proposed. So there's 236 square feet of planting required on lot number 45, and the lot line currently runs between the two houses and at this angle up here. So this is the mitigation planting for the increase on this lot. And over here, there is Zone A, I think increased by 59 square feet. That's with that circular patio. And the Zone B decreased by 51 square feet. There's 428 square feet of planting required on the lot with house number 43. And that's this. And this is in an A zone. There's Coastal Bank back here. So it's in flood zone, and there is Coastal Bank. So this is, some of it's in Zone A, some is in Zone B, but it's within the buffer zone to Coastal Bank where this mitigation planting is proposed. And you can see that it's on this lot number 45, it's just a little bit landward of existing or previously approved mitigation planting. So it will all flow together in this location. And this area here is basically a perennial bed that will be pulled out and put the shrubs along this location. So that is what is being proposed. It's kind of a reshuffling of the impervious surfaces here and some mitigation planting at the back of the lot where there's other Coastal Bank. Take any questions.
No question.
No questions. The plantings you show in Dusty Miller Road layout, they're not part of your mitigation, is that?
No, that was on the previous plan, and that
Well, I
was,
know, I'm just asking.
no, that was just voluntary planting to beef up
Okay,
the
no,
planting.
that's
areas.
fine.
It was not.
'Cause I would have a heart throb about that if it was
No.
mitigation planning, because it's not on the property.
Now, as you can see on this plan here, the only that was called mitigation planting is
No, no,
in that green.
and that's the way I read it on the plan, but
Yes.
I thought I'd ask and just make sure.
And by the way, the fence does not go through any native vegetation, the pool fence. That's just around there somewhere, across here, between the two houses.
Yeah, I'm not happy with the wandering pool fence, but I won't get into that. Okay.
We appreciate that. Kevin?
You didn't change any wall heights, did you?
No.
Oh, okay. So the 2-foot walls are still 2 feet high? You guys?
Are you talking about the walls that were down here? Some of these walls, yeah, nothing there changed.
Okay,
Only thing that changed was in this area right here.
just wanted to check on you.
Keep him on his toes. Betsy?
I have no questions. Thank you.
I don't have any questions. Russ?
It's pretty minor. No questions.
Steve?
No questions.
Peter?
No questions.
Susan? All right.
Make a motion, close the hearing and take it under advisement.
Second.
We were,
We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion from the board? Any comments from the public? For the record, we're gonna vote order conditions on this tonight. We have a motion and a second. All those in favor of closing the hearing, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? It is unanimous. Thank you, Tom.
thank you.
With the others, yeah. The other one. Next up, request for a certificate of compliance. Judith R. Berg, 344 Pinecrest Beach Drive, East Falmouth, Mass. Request for a certificate of compliance for Mass DEP 25-3679.
Is that you?
Why is it so loud today?
Wow.
Tom? Did you do what I asked? Perfect, thank you. Yes, please.
That's not what I want. Alrighty. Good evening. For the record, Tim Santos from Holmes and McGrath, representing the applicant. Project is located at 344 Pinecrest Beach Drive on Jenkins Pond. This project is currently, the property is currently developed with an existing single-family home, garage, driveway, as well as some decks and patios. The project was before you back in 2010, at which time, and a long time ago, an order of conditions was issued for the reconstruction of the house. A few additions to the front of the house, as well as porch and deck and balconies, which also involves some mitigation plantings and restoration plantings on the bank. Since that time, we've been working with staff in regard to a walkway, as well as a patio and some minor deviations on the decks and stairs to the house to try to bring the project into compliance. So back in the springtime, staff was contacted by Mr. Berg in regard to the native plantings that needed to go in. And at that time, it was noted that unbeknownst to Mr. Berg, but the patio that he had built was, and what I have here highlighted in blue, and this walkway in blue and yellow, was built within jurisdiction. So what he had done was he placed a tape along the edge of the water, pulled it 100 feet, and thought he was outside of jurisdiction. So Mr. Berg is here. If you have questions on that, as a layman might not have known that pulling the tape up along the slope is kind of not the correct way to do it, but I'm trying to explain to you how it was done and why this was done. So he inadvertently, well, he thought he was outside of jurisdiction, and in reality, as you can see on the plan, the patio and the walkway is in your jurisdiction. So staff contacted us. We've worked with Mr. Berg and staff to update the existing conditions plan that's before you. What I have highlighted in yellow is what's the increase of structures within the A, and what we have highlighted in blue is the increase in structures within the B. So there's approximately 51 square feet of increase in A and 228 square feet in B. So to bring the project into compliance, we would need 609 square feet in accordance with the redevelopment bylaws. So the problem becomes is there's not 609 square feet available on the property to bring it into compliance. So we're here tonight to try to figure out the best way to move forward and hopefully allow the patio and walkway to remain while putting some plants on the site and also be able to get this project a certificate of compliance. So I do have an area, if you kind of follow this area right here, that's 10 feet off the house and 5 feet off the steps. That's about 350 square feet where that's currently, it was previously lawn back here under the original development, and there was a shed, which is gone. It's mulch now. We could put some plantings back here. That's 350 square feet. So we're still short another 259 square feet. And there is some space here to put plantings, and I think that's 195 off the top of my head. So what we wind up being short is about 55 square feet of plantings. So ideally, Mr. Berg would like to keep his patio and walkway and also keep some of his yard area. So we need to figure out how to obtain that compliance. You know, we filed for compliance. We couldn't get compliance because of what was constructed, but we also can't get you the 609 square feet. So this is a very unique property. If you look at the full set plan, it's an L shape. It comes off Pinecrest and L's down towards the pond. The property is heavily wooded. It's about 65, 67% wooded. So there's not really any other place on the property we could plant. I'm not sure if there's an alternative to try to plant somewhere else, maybe on another property that the town might own, that Mr. Berg could provide some type of restoration or mitigation for that. It's an option. So we'd be more than happy to discuss it with you and answer any questions.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, Tim pretty much summed it up. We went out there. I think Brendan was contacted by Mr. Berg, who was trying to fulfill the requirements of his order of conditions. When Brendan went out there, he noticed the patio, compared the plan. And so Ms. Berg has worked with Reposa to get the mitigation plantings in. You approved an RDA a couple of weeks ago so that he could put his plants in. And staff's hands were tied at that point. Nothing, we couldn't do anything. We couldn't issue compliance without this board vote. So, how many board members went out to the site?
I remember the site from before, though.
I know, but you need to go out and see what it looks like now. So, I mean,
We did submit photos too, not to
Yeah, I
interrupt.
know.
so.
I mean, if the board's comfortable, discussing it and making a determination, I would tonight, fine. If you wanna go out and look at it, I like your idea. Tim, I do have one question though, where the area of mulch is, Mr. Burke, isn't that where your dog goes? Like a dog area? Not anymore, but it was your dog's area, correct? Okay, all right. Oh, I am so sorry.
That's where you're saying you could potentially put some.
Correct.
How much did you say? I'm sorry.
The area in the back is, I'm gonna,
Yeah, 3-something?
350.
I put you on the spot. What did you see when you went out there?
I mean,
In the
I'm-
total,
I really have a problem in, because I think we've done this before, haven't we? Where somebody proposed, they couldn't make the mitigation work on their property, but they were gonna do it in another spot in town.
Not a good road.
Right, and that's what I'm concerned about.
Yeah, it's considered off-site mitigation, and your requirements don't
Right.
allow for it at this point. So, I mean, the issue here is precedent. I mean, that's it.
Yeah, that's what my
I
whole
mean,
point was.
this board
once we
has
open that
made,
gate.
you guys have issued compliance in the past. We haven't seen one of these in a
We're
while.
talking only 50 square feet.
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
I'm
I
fine.
don't have a problem with that.
No,
This is a very tight
let it go.
lot with lots of vegetation.
Tim, what's in the back, so we don't have to chew up all of that area? How much do you have in the back?
Back here?
Yeah.
That's 350 square feet.
Okay.
You said you can get it up to 550?
Plus or minus. 350's in the back, and this area right here,
Is that mulch or lawn?
it's currently mulch.
It's currently mulch.
That's 195 square feet in that area, so I think it leaves us 54 square feet short.
I don't
Yeah.
have a problem with this.
Let's let everybody. Courtney?
Yeah, so you're proposing to mitigate the areas that are behind this pencil lines? Is that what you're,
That was one of the thoughts, correct.
and what does that come to, total square feet?
350 plus 195.
Minus,
And you're,
It comes to 545, Courtney,
okay, and in theory,
or no?
what's that disturbed area that you did without authorization? Where the patio is? and
So the disturbed area in blue is 228, and the yellow is 51.
So,
So he's like 54 feet short.
Of the 2 times the blue and the 3 times the yellow.
I'm fine with that, have him plant as much as he can.
Kevin?
okay. I mean,
Well, I'll set a precedent with,
Tim, you didn't outline those areas when you submitted your certificate of compliance. did
No,
you?
what-
You just came up with those today?
To be honest with you, I just came up with them probably like 2 hours ago.
Could
Okay,
we
we
get a
can-
couple more trees in here, maybe?
No, according.
It's very heavily
It's-
wooded.
You can't, no. I think
nothing. you
Tim
can do.
made a good effort in the last 2 hours.
Okay. Steve?
I can live with this.
Okay, Peter?
I can live with this.
Susan?
Yep.
All right.
so can I make a motion to issue a certificate of compliance?
But just to be clear, we're including those 2 new,
Yeah, so I assume we'd file an RDA for the plantings?
Yeah, and when you file the RDA for the plantings, after those are in, let us know, and we'll go out and look and issue the certificate of compliance. You good?
just to ensure that this additional planning is recorded with a deed and goes forward, should we, do we need more than an RDA?
Well, when he comes for the certificate of compliance, he's gonna have to submit a new plan with those areas, and we're gonna make those areas ongoing with the deed.
Yeah, okay.
That would be the plan of record, yeah.
Yeah, the
That's
plan of
fine.
record's gonna be the certificate of compliance plan, and Tim's gonna point them out that these areas are ongoing with the deed.
Okay,
Like any other planting area, like in any other order of conditions.
Fair enough.
When we issue a certificate of compliance, those areas are recorded and are supposed to be maintained for the life of the property, the planet, or whatever it is we do.
So what's the procedure for this? Do we want to turn it down? Is that technically what?
No, so.
We need to take a
we're-
vote?
Well, we're going to continue this one,
Yeah, that's
because we
part of
can't
the-
issue the compliance until the plants go in,
Understood.
okay? So we'll continue this.
Is it easier to withdraw without prejudice? Because you'd be continuing to an
We're gonna
uncertain
have to
date?
continue it until the spring, because you can't plant.
Okay,
You know?
okay.
So, I don't want it to kind of get forgotten about, that's the issue. So, let's see how far my calendar goes out, and then we can regroup from there. Oh, look at that, we go into April. Perfect.
Okay, I make a motion to continue till April, give me a Wednesday in April.
Let's go 15th, right in the middle of the month.
Tax day. Perfect day.
So April 15th.
My favorite day.
April 15th, and in that period, get an RDA filed, and soon as the weather cooperates in the spring, we'll get them in, and then regroup for the certificate of compliance.
Excellent.
I mean, and then the plan of record will be that. And at least it's still on the radar.
And I assume that if we get everything done, we don't need to come back to the hearing in April?
No,
Okay, I'm just,
no. Yeah, if everything's done, the staff's satisfied, we'll let the board know.
Okay.
Yeah, that's fine.
trying to save my client some money.
No, that's fine. And nice work in the last 2 hours, Tim.
Thank you.
All right, we have a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
We have a motion and a second to continue April 15th, 2020. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? It is unanimous.
Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
The
Nice
best
to see
we
you,
can
Tim.
do.
See you guys soon. Have a great weekend.
Sorry about your dog.
Okay, vote order conditions. First up, we haven't heard this one in a while. Lisa Lyden, 43 and 45 Dusty Miller Road, Falmouth, Mass. This is the whole edition.
Do we need to change the conditions at all, or just what's existing?
Hang on, hang on,
No,
hang on.
because there's gonna be new. Open amendment,
Yeah, I mean, it's not
Right,
like.
so is there
Usually-
anything additional anybody wants to do?
just a new record.
Exactly, and not
We,
really.
usually, if you don't want to do any additional conditions, we just put the previous standard and special conditions are ongoing with this, so you're fine.
Moved.
Yeah, I can, second.
Okay.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Is everybody good with that?
Yes, sir.
All right, all those in
Talk to you
favor
about
say
my
aye.
text.
Opposed? It is unanimous.
Hold up, guys. Susan's got confused, so,
I
Okay.
lost that.
no,
You guys are talking to each other.
she does
Okay,
not like
so-
that. So we're voting orders of conditions, 43, 45 Dusty
got that.
Miller. It's vote to amend the order of conditions for the construction of in-ground pool and patio. Okay? There will be no additional special conditions.
Yeah, but we gotta
All standard and
talk about the precinct meetings. and
special
time.
conditions from the previous order apply.
I'm sorry.
Special and.
All standard and special conditions from the previous order apply.
in the motion?
That's all in their motion, yes.
Okay.
Make note of the appropriate contractor.
Was
This,
that Betsy that said that?
this dice. Tom, I'll talk to you about my tax tomorrow.
Did Betsy move that?
Betsy, did you move
I
that?
think I moved it.
Betsy moved it. Who second? Steve second.
Just want to make sure that
Peter or
contractor keeps his site clean.
Pick.
I heard
Pick a
all
name.
about
Yes,
his,
absolutely.
I heard all about his erosion control today. All right, wait. I need this.
Rough neighborhood, don't leave your equipment out.
Hey, Tom. Wednesday, Monday at noon. Groundbreaking for
All right,
Phase 2.
that's other business. Are we good?
We're good.
I'm
All right. Next up, Scott and Nyla Lutz, 109 Madeline Road, East Falmouth, Mass. This is the raise and rebuild.
They can never come back again. Want that in the conditions.
Is that one?
What's our limit for continuances?
8?
All right, so this is due November 6th.
And we broke your record for meetings, so
You already know, I put it right in his face, I did.
steal my
Betsy,
thunder.
when
Next
do we
morning,
close
bam, I
Lutz?
got it.
Close Madeline.
Is it here?
That's gonna be a
It
tough
will,
one to
it
break.
should be.
Yeah, here it is.
All right, do we want to discuss this? 109 Madeline Road.
Yeah, I'm getting the quorum right now.
And the quorum for that other one, is everybody that's here, Jim?
No,
Yes.
Courtney, Kevin, Jamie, I'm reading it to you now.
Say it again.
Courtney, Kevin, Jamie, Russ, Steve, Peter.
Betsy, Courtney, Kevin, Jamie, and what?
Courtney, Kevin, Jamie, Russ, Steve, Peter.
Got it.
Okay, gentlemen, what would you like to do? Do we have any really, like, after
Standards.
everything?
I don't think there's anything special.
No, I hate the standards. Conditions.
You know, the plantings to maintain them. Let me look real quick. What did you say, Steve?
You gotta change the plastic tarp periodically.
Yeah, that's standard stuff there. Yeah, just your normal special conditions, your normal standard special conditions.
Stockade fence to protect the
Hang on.
land.
Hooded, visions on the other side, let's check out Kevin's staff report here. Yeah, I think the only concern was the trees, the neighbor thought 13 were coming out, Wayne had 12 on the plan. If there's an additional tree, we can catch it at compliance time.
But he had said he would,
Yeah, he'll put it in. So, I think you're fine.
all right. Anybody?
I'll make a motion to approve as discussed.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? All right, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? It is unanimous, and don't
How you
make a
doing with
motion to
that,
close yet, we have 2 things to talk about, real quick. 3 things to talk about real quick.
Geez, Tom never did that.
What's that?
He let us,
Told us, he
he
never,
let us
exactly.
an adjournment right away.
Doors right there. Precinct meetings.
Right after I talk to the, probably around 9, I'll be in.
Explain to me what a precinct meeting is.
Yeah.
Okay, so for town meeting, there's 9 precincts in town,
Yeah,
and they have a pre-town meeting at each precinct to discuss the, not agenda, what's the?
Articles, warrant articles.
And one of the, things coming up is a proposal to change
The
one of
regulations.
our regulations. So typically, we would go two of us would go, and just, if there's any questions, I don't think you can make a presentation per se. If
No,
there's any-
Less is
You-
more.
You're basically there
Less
to
is
answer
more.
questions.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
And less is
Yeah, but
more.
would they ask
Yes.
questions, wouldn't they just ask questions of Holcomb? Would they ask questions from us?
Well, what they do, what happens, Jen, is they go through every article.
Yeah.
You know, and then people will ask questions about a particular article. It's kinda nice to have somebody there that's, you know, to answer that question, because who else is gonna answer it, you know?
The answer is, there'll be a presentation on town meeting.
Correct.
I mean, don't get into
Correct.
the details.
No, absolutely, Betsy, I agree.
Right.
I'm just saying
So
that
if it's that simple, then we don't,
Yeah, you still should be there.
Yeah, really.
You should have someone.
Respect.
so,
And they're all on Wednesday.
I know, every one
I
of
know, haven't we gone through this before?
Please, some of them are
we
Thursday.
sent that list out, right?
Yes,
Did everybody get it?
I ignored it.
good one, Kevin.
Yeah.
I couldn't help it.
If you didn't know what it
Precinct-
was, you could have asked
precinct-
us. We would have been
precinct
happy to
meetings?
tell you about what they are. You should go. What precinct are you in?
Wednesday.
You're in 5 and 6.
Five
Right.
and six.
5 or 6.
I know.
Second, I
Six,
suppose.
I think.
You're in 6.
Okay.
Yeah, so it's precincts 5 and 6 meet together.
No.
So,
Okay.
so,
We're all in the CPC.
So we should come up with a statement.
Well, the statement is that whatever they have to say, the statement is we'll be giving a presentation on town meeting floor.
Right.
Right, but it should come from somebody being there.
The chair,
You know what I mean? Because like I said,
chair
it
could
shows their
release one of
respect.
us.
Chair.
Well, I can't
And the
go-
vice
I-
chair.
I can't go on the one that's like the 7th. So I don't mind
Okay. There's
missing
one
of
next
these
week,
meetings.
the 30th.
On Wednesday?
Yeah.
I don't mind going by myself, since I've had to go so many times. Except, I think you should go to your own precinct meeting.
Yeah, so,
all right, so who's precinct 3, 4, and 7?
I'll go to that one. That's next week? That's,
No, that's the 6th of Wednesday. That's November
Oh, the 6th.
6th.
all right,
Well, I'll
wait a
go to
minute,
that
wait.
one.
Let's just start with next week, because which is precinct 8 and 9. So,
And then we can discuss who goes to the other ones next week.
I'm gonna be out of town.
okay, so
6th, I won't be
I'll
here.
do 8 and 9, which is next week. Is there anybody that would want to go with me?
That's on a Wednesday?
It is on a Wednesday. So if I go to that,
Yeah,
Russ has to
Chair.
chair.
You have to stay
okay.
chair.
all right, so I guess I'm going alone.
You can go alone, you think the lots of them.
All right,
So just to say it, because we're having a discussion, on the 6th is precinct 3, 4, and 7. But to be clear, 3 is at one place, 4 and 7 are at another.
I could do 4 and 7.
Steve can do 4 and 7.
I'll do 3.
All right.
Bets, I wanna talk to you.
I thought you weren't around then, Betsy. Didn't you
I'm
just
not
say-
around for the next one. I'm not around for the 7th.
7.
This is the 6th.
So that, you know that, Steve, it's at the Walkway
I do.
Okay,
That's my precinct.
all right. Oh, I'm sorry, and Gus Canny for you.
Yeah, that's it.
And I'm out at the Navigator. And then the 7th, which is a Thursday, is 5 and 6 at North Falmouth Elementary, 1 and 2 in Town Hall. And they're both at 7 o'clock.
That's what day?
And all you have to say is
The
that
7th,
we'll give a
Basically, there's gonna be a presentation at,
town meeting.
town meeting.
on.
Okay.
So why don't you go to yours and then you'll see what it's like? 5 and 6.
You're not gonna let me go alone. I mean, do you?
I would love to go
Do you
with you.
have any idea of the trouble I could get you guys into?
right.
Jesus.
Are you,
Okay.
you're in precinct 6?
One of those things, yeah.
Okay, so why don't you plan on going and I'll go with you?
When is
That's
it,
Thursday
Thursday?
the 7th at
Yeah.
7 o'clock, North Falmouth Elementary School.
That's a crowd.
It's a good one, though. It's a very,
And did
And
we have
what's
anybody?
precinct, who's precinct 1 and 2?
Sorry,
My favorite.
Who's 1 and 2?
we haven't gotten there yet.
No, but what area of town?
Town Hall, so it's,
Town Hall.
Woods
yeah.
Hole.
Nick
What
Lowell,
day
yeah,
is
he's the
that?
Runs the
precinct
best
captain.
meeting.
Yeah.
Okay.
When is,
They do
when
it
is
That's the
it?
7th.
1 and 2?
I'm sorry?
When is that one?
1 and 2, Thursday the 7th at 7 here.
I'll be in Canada.
Former CPC member runs 4 and 7.
Anybody do 1 and 2? I can't do 'em
That's
2.
on a Thursday.
I can do 1 and 2. If you want me to do it, I will.
Okay.
If you,
Well, I'm at 5 and 6, so I can't do.
Yeah. do you want me to do 1 and 2? I'll just say the commission will give a presentation in town meeting floor. I'll go to 1 and 2 for you.
You'd be surprised.
So we
I'd like to be surprised.
have a meeting that night, right? Oh, no, 7th, no,
We got asked.
Oh, the 6th, there's a meeting on the 6th.
yeah.
Barbara
So
Schneider.
Thursday,
Okay.
the 7th of November
Right,
at,
Owns the one in East Falmouth, that East
What,
Falmouth
7
School
o'clock?
is really good.
at
job,
7
too.
o'clock. Do you know where the 5 and 6 is?
North Falmouth Elementary.
Oh, is it North
Yeah.
Falmouth? Yeah. Sometimes they've had it at the, like, West Falmouth Library, but the last few times it's been.
okay.
Too bad.
All right,
I can tell
so
you where they all are.
1, 2, 3, 4, 7, 5, 6. Okay, so we're covered. Thank you, everyone.
Okay.
All right, next up is presentation for town meeting.
Oh, yeah, no, Betsy and I will, Betsy and I are gonna work on the board's
Okay,
presentation for town meeting, on your presentation to town meeting. No,
and that was Wednesday at 9 AM?
Betsy, aren't we meeting Wednesday at 9?
Wednesday at 9,
Did-
9:30.
9:30, Wednesday at 9:30.
Did you have Mary's original presentation?
It does have
We
something
didn't,
to do
but
with
I looked at it, it doesn't really transfer.
But it's a good outline as far as I'm concerned.
It is a good outline,
Yeah.
it is a good outline. I have some ideas.
I have some figures. that
Yep.
are being made for
And what, I have to read it?
Yes, and you'll have to
I'm gonna give you
practice.
some illustrations.
All right,
Picture tells a thousand.
good. Then I can speak two,
Right, you give 2. No, look at.
and then 998 pictures. All right, what was the third thing?
Monday, noon.
Oh, that's old news. Monday at noon, Coonamessett River Restoration, groundbreaking for Phase Dose.
Dose.
Those phases.
Be there or be square.
I have to
Kevin
show up at
volunteered.
9:30, right?
8:30.
8:30?
What?
No,
What?
No, no, 11:30.
No. What time? You told me 9:30. Oh, you gonna have me
No,
show up
no.
at 9:30?
No, I
And the
did
damn
not.
thing doesn't start
No,
until
I did
12?
not.
I make a motion to adjourn.
Second. Who seconded?
All those in favor say aye.
Who's made the motion, I
Opposed?
thought?
We're adjourned.